global mission pioneers in the city of Bangkok, and mission service in Sri Lanka and the Philippines. That and much more coming up next on Global Mission Snapshots.
Just before he went up to heaven, Jesus gave us a command. He gave us a mission. Jesus said, "Go. Go unto all the world, telling them of His love." This is our mission. This is our global mission.
Hello and welcome to Global Mission Snapshots. I'm Gary Krause. On today's program, we'll be talking with Rick Kajiura, Communication Director for Adventist Mission, who recently visited global mission pioneers who are planting new groups of believers in Bangkok, Thailand. We'll also talk with another Rick McEdward, whose family served as missionaries in Sri Lanka and the Philippines. Dr. McEdward has a passion for mission and today directs our Global Mission Study Centers. We'll also visit a global mission pioneer working in the highlands of Sri Lanka. But first up, let's go back a few years to a video we produced looking at challenges and plans for Bangkok. We called it Hope for Bangkok.
The cities are a huge challenge. They represent postmodernism and all the various elements that come from around the world. Today I happen to be in Bangkok, Thailand. It's a city of 12 million. And over the past 100 years, we established about 5 churches, but we're in the process of putting in 18 new churches.
Located in the heart of Southeast Asia, the Kingdom of Thailand is a tropical country with a rapidly growing economy. Major exports include textiles, footwear, automobiles, and computers, but the mainstay of the country is rice. Thailand is the world's #1 exporter of rice, exporting enough annually to feed over 44 million people for an entire year. Domestically, Thai cuisine is accompanied predominantly by rice, lots of rice. A typical person in Thailand consumes over 100 kilograms of rice every year. At this Buddhist temple, a large group has gathered for mid-morning worship. They've brought food to be blessed by the monks and then given as an offering. About 95% of the population of Thailand practices Theravada Buddhism. This traditional or early form of Buddhism has been interwoven with the belief of animism across much of the country. Over time, this syncretistic religious system has been ingrained into the cultural DNA of the Thai people. Many homes and businesses have miniature temples, known as spirit houses, placed on their property. Animism teaches that both good and evil spirits live in many of the objects of everyday life. Offerings of food and incense are left in the ornate miniature temples to appease the spirits and keep the family out of harm. Recently, Gary Krause, director of the Office of Adventist Mission, talked with Pat Guston, who served as a missionary in Thailand for 17 years.
Buddhism is a very tolerant religion that's open to many new ideas. It's a gentle religion in which people feel that they can believe many different things and still be good Buddhists. And so in a sense, it's not hard for them to be tolerant of Christianity, but then to move away from that and to become give total allegiance to Jesus or to Christianity. That's a big challenge.
This challenge was met in 2006 with the launch of Global Mission's Hope for Bangkok Church Planting Initiative. Global Mission is the frontline mission arm of Adventist Mission, an office of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's world headquarters. Since 1990, Global Mission has helped establish new congregations in previously unreached areas of the world. These include everything from North American communities with no Adventist presence to unentered countries in the 1040 window. Bangkok is Thailand's capital and largest city with more than 12 million people living and working in extremely cramped conditions. Gridlock consumes the maze of streets almost 24 hours a day. Heavy investment in mass transit systems strain to move the huge and rapidly growing metropolitan population of Bangkok to and from work every day. Doug Vinn, an Adventist missionary, coordinates the Hope for Bangkok initiative.
With the Hope for Bangkok project and the support from the World Field, we started 10 new church plants. Now these are, from small groups to now some have even grown to, we've had some baptisms and fruit from God of how He's changed lives. And so, but then the laymen, this is the exciting thing, is that the laymen have just seized the work. And so our investment of 10, and thanks to the sacrifice of the World Church, has now blossomed, and so another 8 more have started. And actually this month we're going to start our 19th one.
To date, 69 Thai people have accepted Jesus through baptism at the 9 church plants across the city. The project is finding much of its success by using friendship evangelism.
People from non-Christian backgrounds who become Christian, the majority become Christians because of a relationship with a loving Christian. More than doctrine, more than teaching, more than any of these things. Ultimately, obviously, we do have to teach people and give them good answers to their questions about life. But first of all, friendship and relationship and building bridges with people as friends is got to be the foundation.
One story of friendship started when Nung decided to leave her career as a dancer in one of Thailand's well-known cultural theaters.
I first met God when I started working as a teacher at Ram Kam Hang Advent International School. This is one of the Adventist schools in Bangkok. I started teaching after I quit working at Siam Niramit as a Thai cultural dancer in this theater.
Shortly after she began work at the school, Nung met Phim, a Seventh-day Adventist teacher at the school.
We developed a close relationship, and I started to trust her. I got to know her way of living even more, which is a Christian Seventh-day Adventist way of living. I was impressed and learned about a life that is truly simple and happy. That motivated me to learn more about who God is, what God is, and how He works. This is the reason why I wanted to learn more about God.
A year later, following the Holy Spirit's leading, Nung was baptized after attending evangelistic reaping meetings with Pastor Scott Griswold, hosted at the Ekamai Thai Seventh-day Adventist Church. Through the love of this caring Christian family, Nung was drawn to its source, the living God. Adventist Mission operates 5 global mission study centers in key locations around the world. Their purpose is to build bridges of understanding and friendship with people from major world religions and philosophies. These study centers research and experiment with ways to more effectively share with people from profoundly different worldviews. Scott Griswold is director of the Study Center for Ministry among Buddhists. Every Sabbath, Scott and his family open their home to friends they have met while working in the community. Despite the deeply religious culture of the country, sharing a Christian message has been difficult.
I was trying to figure out how on earth do I share about the cross with the people who say, "Ooh, he must have had bad karma to suffer like that." I was trying to figure out how to share it when a Buddhist himself said to me, "Whenever I'm angry, I think about Jesus on the cross." I said, "What, you do?" And he said, "Yes, he was so kind. He was forgiving his enemies. He kept himself under control. And when I think about him, all my anger just melts away." And it suddenly hit me, in the cross of Jesus is something that will draw all people to him. But sometimes we have to look for that specific piece that will be attractive to them.
The Hope for Bangkok team has the goal of establishing 8 new churches by the end of 2010. Because they're sharing the gospel through programs such as teaching English for spiritual purposes, conducting health programs to serve the needs of the community, and other methods that make it easy for someone from a Buddhist background to learn about Jesus, they're finding success. Thank you for supporting Hope for Bangkok through your prayers, and thank you for your financial support of Global Mission and the mission offerings.
Here to talk more about the challenge of mission in Bangkok and in cities generally is Rick Kajiura. Rick, thanks for joining us.
It's good to be here, Gary.
Rick, the Seventh-day Adventist Church at the moment is very strongly emphasizing the challenge of the cities. Why is that?
You know, for many years we've done very well as a church in rural areas, but the cities have increasingly become a challenge. They've always been difficult, but more and more people are moving into the cities. The cities are getting bigger, there are more of them, and so the challenge of the cities is something that we need to focus on. You know, I remember years ago I was out driving in a rural area, and there was a small town that we went through, and I was passing churches and I wondered, you know, is there an Adventist church here? And I saw the population sign, it was about 200 people in this small town, and I thought, you know, you can have one apartment complex in a city that has that kind of population, and what are we doing to reach those people?
Yeah, and I can remember driving through China with these brand new freeways, and whole towns, whole cities have been created of high-rises, and each high-rise has maybe 1,000 people, and
Right.
so you could plant a church in each one of those high-rises.
Yeah, and they were doing that in Korea, recognizing that, you know, there was a new city coming up around factories, and so they purposely planted a church in that area before the population moved in there, so they're ready when the people come.
Now, we just saw a video that was from a few years ago talking about the challenge of Bangkok, and I know that this was an intentional global mission initiative. What has happened in Bangkok?
Well, you know, Bangkok is a very difficult city. It's a population of about 8 million if you're conservative and don't look at the outlying areas, and yet it's a city with very few Christians. And you know, a lot of people when they think about mission, they think about poor villages, you know, but you're talking about a modern city here with the high rises, luxury automobiles, you know, restaurants, you know, there's electrical power everywhere, technology is everywhere. So what do you do to try and reach these people? And so several years ago, we put an emphasis on Bangkok called Hope for Bangkok. And as part of what they were doing there, they had small church plants in different areas. Very challenging to start church plants in those areas. And you know, we reach people, but it's difficult to reach the Thai people. You know, it's much easier to reach the foreigners who come in and things like that.
Well, let me interrupt you, because for more than 100 years the Adventist Church has had a presence there, but before this initiative began there was probably, 4 or 5 Adventist churches, and every one of them was aimed at people who were not indigenous Thai people. So you had maybe Chinese people, you had expats, but actual local Thai people, they just weren't to be seen.
Sure, and there's a church in Bangkok that's as big as the church that I attend here in the U.S., and it's basically a Chinese church. And they are mission-minded.
We're thankful for that, but...
You know, they try to reach out, but it's just challenging to reach the indigenous Thai people.
Okay, so these new groups were started.
Yeah, these new groups were started, and one of the ones that I visited was one with a global mission pioneer named Edison, and he's actually from the Philippines originally, and he has been there for a number of years, and he's got a church plant there. But this church plant, you know, when I visited, was primarily Filipinos who are living there in Bangkok who come to this church. And they had a wonderful service, you know, singing, but they introduced me to 2 women who are Thai people, and one is a member there. And another one is someone from the neighborhood who they have invited there. And she has been attending church regularly. And I spoke with her and I said, you know, what is it that you like? Oh, I'm not a member yet, you know, but I just like coming here. I like the people, you know, and we have to realize that it takes time for people to make such a radical transition in their lives from not believing in the God we believe in, not believing in the Bible, and making those baby steps toward becoming a Christian. And she's taking those steps. And you know, I hope people will pray for people like this woman who are just getting that first interest and coming and learning more. You know, when I watched them, they were sitting in the Sabbath school class on a little round table just outside the church plant building. You know, and there was Tay, who's a young Thai man who was leading the Sabbath school lesson. So, you know, those first few people begin to grow. You know,
too often we think of mission as being quick fix, quick turnaround, move into an area, run a series of meetings, hold a baptism, but it's not going to work like that in a place like Bangkok. It's going to be a long, long time as people make that transition that you're talking about, and we need to face that as a reality.
Yeah, and you know, I think this is something that church leadership has to recognize too in those areas, because they like those quick fixes too, because
we all
it looks
do,
good on the books. But you know, if we really want it, I remember years ago driving in Australia on the coast road and seeing the arches, the rock arches there, and thinking, you know, wow, how long does it take for these arches to form? They're beautiful. And I thought about, you know, those waves hitting the rock faces, and over time, eventually there's that one little tiny hole which grows into a beautiful arch. But until that first little hole is made, you know, there's nothing happening. Once that first little hole is made, then it begins to happen faster, and you get these beautiful rock bridges.
Well, now there are more than 20 of these beautiful new groups scattered all over Bangkok City.
Yeah, and there's one story that they shared with me about a young man who came to study English, and he was showing an interest, and so they gave him a New Testament, which he read very quickly. He was studying law. He was a law student. And then he you know, asked for an entire Bible, and his sister saw him reading the Bible and said, you know, are you interested in becoming a Christian? And he said, yes, I am. And so the parents found out, and they weren't happy, and they said, well, we want you to become a monk for 2 years before you make any decisions. And he kept reading the Bible, and finally he came and said, my mother's changed her mind. I can become a Christian. And he was baptized.
Wow. Good story. Well, Rick, thanks so much for sharing with us a little bit about what's happening in Bangkok, which is an ongoing project.
It is an ongoing project, and we hope people will pray for them.
Yeah, thank you. And please remember to pray for Bangkok, pray for the Global Mission pioneers who are starting these new congregations. This is difficult work. This is challenging work. Sometimes it can be lonely, sometimes it can be discouraging, but we're just so glad to see so many people's lives being touched by the gospel. I'm delighted to welcome my colleague, Dr. Rick McEdward, who is the Director of the Global Mission Study Centres. Welcome, Rick.
Thanks, Gary.
Rick, you are directing the Global Mission Study Centres. For our viewers who may not have heard of them before, what do they do?
Well, the Global Mission Study Centers really are there to equip Christians, church members, to be able to reach out to people of a variety of faiths and traditions. It could be people who are next door neighbors or in another part of the world, but to try to help people to know what they understand and how to touch their lives.
Now, how many centers do we have?
Currently, we have 6.
Okay, and they would be?
You know, we just started, our latest one is the Urban Ministry Center. We have also a Hindu Ministry Center, one for Islam, one for Buddhism, Judaism, secular and postmodernism as well.
So these are spread all in North America?
We have 9 staff members spread out all over the world. Only a couple of them live here in North America.
Now, Rick, you and your family served as missionaries for some time in Southeast Asia. And I know that you were living in Sri Lanka, then you were living in the Philippines, but you traveled to many different territories in your work. Describe some of the different contexts that you had to work in.
Well, you know, it's interesting as I traveled around over the last 10 years of doing different kinds of mission work. I have seen the poorest and the wealthiest of contexts. You go to a place like Dhaka, Bangladesh, and you go to a place like Singapore. They're radically different, although both in Asia. You see a Buddhist context, which tend to be surrounding the temples and the context of sacrificing the temples with the lamps and different things. Then you go to the Muslim context, where there's a different kind of devotion, praying 5 times a day, and a very strong spiritual connection with God there. And so these wide contexts really provide us opportunity to understand people in a different way.
You also had territories that were communist governments?
Military governments, communist governments, very secular places, some countries that are Islamic republics where we have been, and not to focus on that, but we visit these places because sometimes we have friends and others that live in these contexts.
Now, Rick, when you look at all these different contexts, how do we even begin to witness to Jesus Christ in a way that is meaningful to these different traditions? I mean, where do we start?
Well, you know, where we have typically started is we typically share Christ with other Christians.
Yeah.
And I think that doesn't fully represent the commission Jesus has given us. So what I like to say is begin with the person who's closest to you. Begin with your neighbor. Begin with somebody who you can start associating with. That's the place to start.
Now, you went to Sri Lanka from North America. This is you had lived overseas before as a child, but this is your first experience. What did you learn from that experience?
You know, I came in as thinking I knew a lot and finding out that I knew very little. It was a country that was divided. We know from the stories of Sri Lanka that there was a civil war going on there. And I lived in this really incredible Buddhist community where people were so loving, so friendly, and who accepted us, even though we were foreigners, into their midst. What I found out is that people are people. And a lot of times others will respond to a kindness, a friendship, some love, some service, where we think it's complicated. Share
an experience of how you were able to engage in somebody's life when you were over there.
Well, one of the experiences I like to tell is about my wife. She liked to go around the community and share some of the holiday goodies at Christmas time or at some of the local holiday time. And as that happened, people opened up their lives. They began to invite her. She was a nurse, so she would go to their home at times of distress or sickness. She'd go to funerals in the community. My children began teaching English. They were just small at the time, teaching English in the community. And you know, over time, it really meant a lot. When we visited there after moving away, people stood in the alleyway outside the house for 3 or 4 hours. Some of them come up and stroking my wife's cheeks and hugging my children. And I knew that my wife and my children, while I was traveling around the country, were able to make a deep impact into the lives of people.
So, looking at that experience on the ground, in the field, with your work now, how do you see that marrying together?
You know, I think we have to come at our witness as learners. Just because I'm the director of the study centers doesn't mean I've stopped learning. And as we learn in the field, we can then talk with others, maybe do a little coaching, find some principles of similarities, commonalities between how do we share with people of this background and how to share with others. And I like to think of it as a time of trying to find ways of getting behind the iron walls that people have put up.
Now, Rick, when we look at Seventh-day Adventists, do you find that we have more in common with people from, say, an Islamic tradition than many of us would have first thought?
You know, I find incredible bridges that we have as Adventists that virtually every other Christian church wishes they had. And some of this has come because of our belief in the second coming. Some of it has to do with the Sabbath or the way we eat. All of these have provided for us a rich ability to reach out and help people understand who God is.
Tell us about this new Study Center for Urban Mission, just briefly.
The Study Center for Urban Mission is really geared for understanding the cities. How do we reach out in this complicated urban setting? that's really what it's about.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Rick. And viewers at home, please remember the Global Mission Study Centers in your prayers. It's a challenging task to find ways that we can be more effective in building bridges to our brothers and sisters who come from vastly different faith traditions to what we have.
Meet Raja, a global mission pioneer in the hill country of Sri Lanka. Several times a week, he meets with a small group here in a small meeting room attached to one corner of his house. The service is simple, yet meaningful. This is the second group of believers that Raja has helped establish in the past 4 years. In this region, there are no large halls to host evangelistic meetings. Cars are a luxury that few people can afford. Most people walk or travel by public transportation. Getting from place to place can take hours. This makes public and personal witnessing difficult. This pearl-shaped island nation, some 20 miles off India's southeastern coast, also has strong ethnic and religious divides that cause people to be wary of Christianity. As a result, the Adventist Church has grown slowly over the past century. Then, 10 years ago, Global Mission started an initiative to send frontline pioneers to meet people where they live. Global Mission pioneers like Raja understand the culture, they speak the language, and they are able to break down prejudice. Raja is just one of some 2,500 Global Mission pioneers around the world. These lay church members typically spend at least 2 years working to establish a new congregation within their culture. Global Mission's work of intentionally reaching people where they live is paying off. Over the past decade, the number of Adventist congregations in Sri Lanka has grown from 28 to nearly 50, a growth rate of more than 50%. Thank you for your support of Global Mission and your mission offerings that help reach God's children in the tea estates of Sri Lanka. To learn more about Global Mission, please visit global-mission.org.
If you care about mission and love the peoples, cultures, and places of the world, and if you like good food, we'd like to send you a free copy of A Taste of Travel. This beautifully illustrated vegetarian cookbook features soups and stews from more than 130 countries of the world. And Nancy Kite, Adventist Mission Marketing Director, personally taste-tested each one of the recipes. Recipes such as sweet mango soup from Jamaica, tomato basil soup from Latvia, and sweet potato stew from Guyana. So if you live in North America and you'd like a free copy of this book, please call our toll-free number 1-800-648-5824 or visit our website and ask for your copy of A Taste of Travel or the Soup Cookbook if you don't remember the title. But hurry, because supplies are limited, and please remember, clearly state your name and address and mention the cookbook. Well, that's about it for today's program, and I hope it inspires you to pray for the people and places you'll see. And a special thank you to those viewers who call or go online at www.adventistmission.org to financially support global mission projects. For the Office of Adventist Mission, I'm Gary Krause, and I hope you can join me next time right here on Global Mission Snapshots.